It was just after 8 a.m. when a cyclist spotted something strange drifting in the quiet waters of Houston's White Oak Bayou. A pale, human hand moving gently with the current. Within minutes, police had sealed off the area. By noon, the entire city was whispering. This wasn't the first body pulled from Houston's waterways this year. It was the 16th. People started asking the question no one wanted to say out loud. Is someone dumping bodies in Houston's bayous? Where are you watching from? Have you ever heard of White Oak Bayou? Or passed under the I-45 bridge in Houston? Do you think this is the work of a serial killer? Or something even darker hiding in plain sight? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love real crime and unsolved mysteries, hit subscribe so you never miss another story. October 8, 2025. The morning began like any other in Houston. Humid air, a faint mist rolling off the bayou. Cyclists were already out, weaving along the narrow path under the tangled highways of I-45 and I-10. But at 8:02 a.m., one of them stopped. Floating in the murky brown water was what looked like a discarded mannequin arm, except it wasn't. When police arrived, they called in the Houston Police Dive Team. What they pulled from the water was a young woman, estimated to be in her late 20s. She wore a faded t-shirt that read, "Black Beautiful," and a pair of jeans. On her right arm, a small tattoo. 8. Her face had been badly affected by the water, but there were no visible signs of external trauma. Authorities initially called it an unconfirmed drowning, yet within hours, local media recognized a grim pattern. This was the 16th body found in Houston's waterways since January. 16 in less than 10 months. Online, the hashtag Bayou Bodies began to trend. Residents started connecting dots the police refused to acknowledge. One woman, Cynthia Lopez, who lives 2 blocks from the bayou, told reporters, "It's like the water keeps giving them back. Every few days, someone new comes up." Officials held a press conference that afternoon, insisting there was no evidence of a serial killer or foul play connecting the cases. But denial couldn't drown out the fear. Every Houston resident now looked at the water differently, and under the shadow of the I-45 bridge, the bayou kept its secrets. By the end of that week, Houston's police department faced growing pressure. It wasn't just this one body. The numbers didn't lie anymore. 16 victims in less than 10 months. Different ages, different races, different neighborhoods. But the one thing they all had in common was where they were found. The city's silent network of bayous. The bayous run like veins through Houston, twisting under highways, behind parking lots, past old factories, and forgotten parks. They are both part of the city's beauty and its darkness. Locals joke that if you want to lose something, throw it in the bayou. It won't come back. But lately, everything seemed to be coming back. The medical examiner's reports painted an eerie picture. Some victims had traces of water in their lungs, signs of drowning. Others didn't. Several bodies had identical ligature marks on the wrists, faint but visible. And 3 women shared the same tattoo placement, the inside of the right arm. Detectives started mapping the discoveries on a board inside HPD headquarters, a red dot for every body. By the time they finished, the map looked like a blood stain spreading outward from the city's heart. The majority of dots circled back to one area, White Oak Bayou, especially near the intersections of I-10, I-45, and North Main Street. Despite this, officials continued to insist it was all coincidence. Houston's chief of police told reporters, "These cases remain unconnected at this time, We urge the public not to jump to conclusions. But on social media, people weren't waiting for permission to speculate. TikTok users posted videos of the bayou at night, claiming to hear screams beneath the bridges. Reddit threads compared the pattern to historical serial cases from the 1970s. And then, a new post appeared on X, formerly Twitter, from an anonymous account named @BayouWatcher. It read only 3 words: "He's doing it again." 2 days after the woman's body was recovered from White Oak Bayou, the medical examiner released a key detail that caught every investigator's attention: the tattoo. 3 bold digits inked just above her wrist. 888. At first, it seemed random, but then a young HPD analyst reviewing past case files noticed something strange. 2 earlier victims, both found in nearby waterways, had similar tattoos. One on the inner arm, one faintly visible on a shoulder. The same 3 digits, the same style of ink. Detectives pulled those files and lined them side by side. All 3 women were between 25 and 35. All 3 were last seen within a 3-mile radius of Midtown Houston, not far from White Oak Music Hall. And all 3 had some trace of adhesive residue on their wrists, possibly from duct tape. The pattern was becoming too clear to ignore. When a journalist from the Houston Chronicle got wind of it, the 888 mystery became front-page news. Theories exploded online. Some said 888 referred to an underground cult. Others believed it was symbolic, a mockery of 666, used by someone who wanted to appear righteous. One Reddit user claiming to live near the bayou posted this chilling message: "Every few nights around 3 a.m., you can hear something moving in the water, like someone dragging a chain." Meanwhile, detectives tracked the tattoo design to a small, unlicensed parlor that had operated out of an apartment complex on Hogan Street 2 years earlier. The artist had since disappeared. No forwarding address, no record of employment. Neighbors described him as quiet, kept to himself, and often seen walking along the bayou late at night. Still, the police held back from declaring any connection. But internally, one homicide detective wrote in his notes, "If this isn't one person's work, then Houston has a much bigger problem." By then, the fear had turned it into obsession. People stopped jogging by the water. Even the city's morning fog seemed heavier, as if it carried secrets no one wanted to uncover. By late October, the story had taken on a life of its own. News vans parked along White Oak Bayou almost every night, and reporters whispered about the curse of the bayou. But what they didn't know was that some of the people closest to the case had started hearing and seeing things they couldn't explain. A Houston Fire Department diver, identified only as Daniel R., gave a quiet interview to a local paper. He said he had retrieved 2 of the bodies himself, and that both times he heard the same thing. "When you're under that water," he said, "you can hear the city, cars, trains, the hum of electricity." But this was different. It sounded like someone whispering, like they were right next to my mask. At first, his team laughed it off. But when a second diver said he heard a woman's voice calling for help, the jokes stopped. Residents living near the bayou began reporting strange noises at night, soft knocks on their windows, splashing sounds when the water was still. One man claimed to have seen wet footprints leading from the bayou trail to the sidewalk. But when police checked, the prints vanished halfway down the street. TikTok videos of these incidents spread fast. One clip showed ripples forming in perfectly still water. The caption reading, "No wind, no boats, just movement." Another clip, filmed from the I-45 bridge, captured faint cries, echoing through the fog. Skeptics called it paranoia, but for those who lived nearby, the fear was real. Detectives assigned to the case started requesting transfers. One officer, after visiting the site 3 nights in a row, refused to go back. He left a note on his desk that read, "There's something alive in that water, and it's not human." The official reports made no mention of these stories. But the whispers spread faster than the investigation itself, and soon, everyone in Houston seemed to believe the same thing. The bayou was speaking. The disappearance happened on a Friday night, October 24th, 2025. The Houston Police Dive Team had returned to White Oak Bayou to recheck a stretch near the I-10 flyover. The current was low, the air heavy with the metallic smell of rain. Leading the team that night was Sergeant Mark Hanley, a veteran diver with 10 years on the force. At 9:47 p.m., Hanley radioed in from the water. "Visibility's near zero. I'm going under the bridge supports." It was the last transmission anyone ever heard from him. When his tether line went slack, the surface team thought he'd reached shallow ground. Then the line began to tighten, slowly, as if something was pulling it deeper. They yanked it back. Nothing. Rescue divers were deployed within minutes. They found Hanley's flashlight wedged between 2 submerged beams, still on, its beam cutting a thin golden ribbon through the black water. His body, however, was gone. For 48 hours, search efforts continued day and night. News outlets broadcast live from the site. Citizens lined the bridge, holding candles and praying. On the 3rd morning, his helmet was discovered downstream, scratched, dented, and covered in fine silt. Inside, a single strand of red thread clung to the latch, too clean to have come from the river. Investigators dismissed rumors that the thread matched fibers found on one of the earlier victims, but off the record, several officers admitted the color and texture were identical. The department quietly suspended further night dives until conditions improve. Hanley's wife gave a brief statement. He wasn't afraid of anything, except that place. The official report lists him as missing in the line of duty. But within the city, people spoke differently. They said the bayou had claimed him, another offering to whatever was hiding beneath the surface. And every night after, the bridge seemed to echo with faint metallic tapping, like someone knocking from underwater, waiting to be found. For weeks after Sergeant Hanley vanished, the investigation went quiet. Officially, Houston police called it a tragic accident during a hazardous operation. Unofficially, the detectives who stayed on the case couldn't let go of one strange detail: the red thread found inside Hanley's diving helmet. The fiber analysis came back a week later. It wasn't from clothing. It was synthetic, a rare kind used in industrial-grade upholstery, specifically the kind used in old bus seats manufactured before 1990. That detail lit a spark. An analyst cross-referenced bus storage yards and junk sites near White Oak Bayou. Only one location matched the area where multiple bodies had surfaced: an abandoned metro bus depot less than a mile away, shuttered since Hurricane Harvey. Records showed it was condemned, never reopened, and technically city property. When detectives entered the depot, they found 23 rusting buses lined up in perfect rows, their windows fogged and their tires rotted. Inside the third bus, sunlight filtered through broken glass and revealed strips of red thread hanging from torn seat cushions. And on the floor, something worse. A plastic evidence marker stood over a dark stain embedded deep in the rubber matting. DNA testing would later confirm it matched one of the earlier victims from the bayou. The walls were covered with fragments of old paper, water-damaged photographs, ticket stubs, even fragments of handwritten notes. One note read, "You can't drown what's already dead." Detectives left the scene shaken. The bus depot was sealed again within hours, this time as a federal crime site. But the press release didn't mention any of this. It simply read, "New evidence under review." That night, Houston locals reported seeing police convoys moving quietly along the Bayou Road. The next morning, the water near the I-45 bridge was unusually high, as if something had been dropped into it. The city stayed silent, and so did the case. But the red thread, the 888 tattoos, and the missing diver were no longer separate mysteries. They were all part of the same silent pattern, winding its way through Houston's veins. By November, the investigation had gone completely silent. The media stopped reporting. Police scanners were strangely quiet, and the official Houston PD website quietly removed all references to the White Oak Bayou case. But locals knew something had happened. At night, people heard helicopters circling the I-45, I-10 interchange. Floodlights cut through the fog like ghostly swords. Then, one morning, everything stopped. The bridge sealed off. The area closed for maintenance. No one was ever told what they found. But a city worker, one who helped drain part of the bayou for infrastructure cleaning, later spoke off the record. He said that when they lowered the water level, they discovered a hollow concrete chamber beneath one of the bridge supports. Inside, carved into the walls, was a single pattern, repeated hundreds of times. 888. Each number was carved by hand, some deep, some barely scratched, like generations of someone marking the same thing over and over. The chamber floor was covered in sediment and old metal fragments. Police badges, jewelry, rusted watches, all half buried. At the center was something far worse. The remains of a diving suit, tangled in red thread. The helmet caved in, like it had been crushed from within. Authorities sealed the site permanently that same night. Within a week, White Oak Bayou was dredged, cleared, and its banks reinforced. The city declared it an environmental restoration project. But the locals still talk about the nights after that. When the fog is thick and the water still, they say you can hear faint tapping beneath the surface, the sound of metal against stone. Some call it superstition. Others say it's Sergeant Hanley, still knocking from the chamber below, warning the city that whatever was buried there isn't gone, just waiting. The final broadcast about the case ended with one line that stuck with everyone who watched it. Water keeps secrets longer than any grave. And in Houston, under the roaring traffic of I-45, the water still moves. Slow, patient, remembering everything it's ever swallowed. They sealed off the bridge, they drained the bayou, and officially, the case is over, but water doesn't forget. Every drop that flows through White Oak Bayou passes the same concrete walls, the same hidden chamber, the same marks carved by hands that were never found. And every so often, when the city goes quiet, people say you can still hear it. The sound of tapping metal from somewhere deep below. Maybe it's just pipes. Maybe it's something else. But if you ever find yourself driving down I-45 late at night, roll down your window, listen closely, and tell me if you hear it too. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Have you ever heard of the White Oak Bayou case, or seen something strange near Houston's waterways? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story gave you chills, make sure to subscribe, because next week we dive into part 2 of this investigation, a case connected to the same 888 symbol, but this time, it's not water that hides the bodies. It's fire. Because in Houston, the city remembers too.